All right, folks, I'm alive. I think I'm live. So the goal of today's session is to add test support, or just basically to cover use auth with tests so that I can feel safer about merging these 7 PRs that have accumulated from all the wonderful people. I used to just merge everything and then test it locally by hand, but that's getting kind of unwieldy, so I've been lazy. And then I haven't merged anything, and now I have issues in pull requests and it's horrible. So I'm just gonna write a bunch of tests today, see how hard it is to actually add test support to a library like this, and then go from there and maybe merge some PRs on the stream. Oh, I should change this thing. And yeah, that's what today is gonna be about. I hope it's interesting. It's probably not gonna be crazy exciting, but you know, it's something that you gotta do, and I find it easier to work on these things when I'm streaming so that I don't lose focus. Let's see, documents, random coding, use auth. And then the first step is going to be, let's see, is there anything new on master? I don't think there's anything new on master. Hey Magdi, I'm doing pretty well. How are you? There's a bunch of branches from dependabot. Interesting. I'm gonna leave dependabot alone and make a new branch, git checkout -b, add tests, and let's see, how do I set up jest testing for this stuff? I'm gonna start by looking at my package.json, see if I have any jest stuff yet. No jest stuff there. Next thing is looking up I had a blog post about this recently that tells me how to set it up so that I don't it's gonna be easier to set up if I look it up. So Swizzets fetch test, because I'm gonna be mocking fetch requests, which everyone says is bad, but is actually really useful for tests like this. Let's see, what do I need? I'm gonna need I didn't add video quality. Brian, if you want better video quality, I recommend going to YouTube or Twitch. I don't know why Periscope creates really bad video quality. So I know I'm gonna need Jest. I also want to have TypeScript support inside Jest, so I'm gonna check my other blog. Let's see, there we go. So yarn add -dev jest, types for jest, ts jest, and I'm gonna use fetch mock because I know I'm gonna need it later. And we're gonna start with just setting up a very simple jest test, running it and seeing if that works. Then we go to building other stuff. Let's see. And also this is my first time testing a React project, which is going to be interesting. I've only tested very simple functions before. I think I already have isomorphic fetch, don't I? No? That's weird. I probably should be using isomorphic fetch somewhere, but it's okay. So configure jest, we're gonna get the jest config.js. I can also steal this from another project of mine. I'm gonna go to a work project where I've set this up, and it's gonna be quicker there. Jest config.js, take this thing, create new file, paste, and we say jest.config.js here. Then we're gonna need the test function in scripts. Where are my scripts? Scripts build dev. Test is going to be just running jest, and the next thing I need is, I guess, just a jest test file, which I'm gonna put in tests. So ls source. Should I put them in? Do people usually put these in source tests or in tests next to source? I've seen people do a bunch of different things here, so I think I'm gonna go with source/tests, because I think it makes more sense. So make dir source __ tests, and we're gonna start with, let's see, what can we start with? If we look at the source files, we can go with the, I think auth reducer TS is a good example because it's a simple function that just does, it's a function that's basically a state machine, so that should be relatively easy to test. So we can go touch source tests auth reducer.spec.ts, and we write our first test in there. So auth reducer TS, which has a bunch of stuff, and then we can go into auth reducer spec TS here, and this one will have to import the auth reducer. So import auth reducer from /source, no, /auth reducer, like that. And let's start with a very simple test that just verifies that the tests are actually running. So what else do we need? Do we need to import anything else? Doesn't look like it. So we can say describe auth reducer, and we describe it with it runs tests. This is going to be a very lame kind of test right now. This is just making sure that the setup is correct and that the tests actually run. And we can say expect true to be true. Okay. So now if I run yarn test, let's see if that runs. It's now doing whatever it's doing, running my tests. By the way, how is my stream? Is it laggy or is it working? Cool. So it's not even importing stuff. Interesting. Just encountered an unexpected token. This usually means that you're trying to import a file which just cannot parse. It's not plain JavaScript. Yes, I know it's not plain JavaScript because I'm pretty sure we can use TypeScript tests. Just config.js, preset ts jest with ignoring node modules and that stuff. What else am I not installing? Types jest, I have that. Maybe tsconfig needs stuff. tsconfig, what do I have here? Okay, so target, that's fine. Module, fine. Strict true, no implicit any. We don't have that. JSX is React. Port helpers, yes. Module interop, that I have. Syntactic default imports, fine. Source map, base URL, lib, I don't know what that does. Including a bunch of stuff and excluding node modules. Okay, so it looks like my default setup is already having issues. And why is it running app-test.js? What? Why? God damn it, code, why are you going into examples? So we go into just config and we say not to test examples. Let's see, will that make it work? Yarn test, there we go. Okay, so now it's not trying to run the default tests that come with create React app and stuff like that. We're just running the tests we actually want. Cool. Now let's see, git status, git add dot, git commit -m, basic jest setup. The next step is going to be to run a bunch of these tests. So for auth reducer, let's see. It's a reducer that does stuff based on the action and the current state, which means we're gonna have to how should we do this? We can start with we can have tests for different actions or for different action types, and then using those for, yeah, that makes sense. That's a good enough test, right? It's basically a function that takes state and an action and returns the new state. So we have full control over that, which means we can test it. So describe login, which does nothing for now. Then we have, yeah, I guess this is not gonna be a very interesting stream, is it? Log in, log out. Then we have stop authenticating, start authenticating. Stop authenticating. Start authenticating. Start authenticating. We can also do, and then we have the error and the default. Error and describe default, which seems kind of silly, but let's do it anyway. So the default is it returns state, right? So it returns the same state, which means that we expect auth reducer of a certain state to equal, do we have to deep equal? How do we do equal for, what is it, what is strict equal? To equal, let's see if that works. I'm actually pretty new to, expected 2 arguments but got 1. Type null. Okay, state 1. Argument of type is not assignable to parameter auth state. Cool. So that's awesome. We have actual, so TypeScript is getting in the way, but in a useful, it's basically annoying us about useful things. So if we say expires at needs to be a date, let's do it this way. So const state equals Jesus bird auth state. This equals what we need. What are our types? We need a user with a sub that is 1, 2, 3, 4. Shh. User, then what else do we need? We also need expires at, which is going to be a new date, and we need the is authenticating, which is false. What is expires at complaining at? Is not assignable to type number. Get time then. Okay. So we pass in the state and we expect it to strict equal the state. So that means it's just returning the same thing. What is this complaining? Okay. So it's not actually Jesus bird. So it doesn't let us have the default test, which is silly because that means we can't even get to this state. So why do we have it there? Okay, so we can have this. That's already a useful thing we learned from writing tests. You can't actually get to the default part of the reducer. Oi, you! Okay. Now, let's see the next part. Let's go with the error state because that's going to be pretty easy to test. Because the error one just gets the type of error and turns everything into basically undefined stuff. So it, let's see, we need to say that it sets error type and it sets error itself. What else do we need? It's also gonna have to, it nullifies expires at, it empties user, and it also empties the user, it nullifies expires at, and it does, and it nullifies auth result. Cool. Now I gotta write all of these tests. So we're gonna have, hi Bert. let's go with the existing state is going to be, we can take this stuff. So that's our existing, what did I do? So that's our existing state. Come on. And we say this is the auth state. And then then in here we're going to say const action that is going to be an auth action, right? Yes, auth action, which is going to be what? The action needs to have an error type and an error. So type is going to be error. Then we say error type, which is this defined anywhere? Do we have a type for actions? Error. So error type is a string. Let's say auth error. And then the error itself is going to be, how do we create a new error? We can just create a new error. Like that. Cannot find name auth action. Why not? Because it didn't auto import. Why did it not auto import? That's silly. And now we write all of these tests. I wonder if there's an automated way to generate tests like this. That would be pretty cool, I think. So we can say, let's say, auth reducer. So we're expecting auth reducer of state and action to expect auth reducer state action dot, let's see, we said dot error type to be auth error, like that. And then we need to copy basically the same approach everywhere else. The error is going to be let's see, what do we have? What kind of matchers do we have? Be defined, to be falsy, to be greater than, to be less than, to be truthy. Let's just go to be defined because that's going to be easier. Empties user, this needs to equal an empty user. So set user, and expires at needs to become to equal. Oh, this also should equal. So this is going to equal null, and auth result is also going to equal null. Auth result null. So I can run tests and see what we get. Cool. So tests are working so far. Hey, awesome. Now we can go up the stack and do it for all of the other what is it? The other action types. Is this actually streaming? It is streaming. Awesome. Kiwi, what the fuck? Let's see. Okay. So I'm just checking something on the internet. See if anyone's actually out there or my chat room died, because it's hard to know. Okay, cool. It says there's people out there, but the chat room's pretty quiet. Interesting. Let me restart the chat room just in case. But yeah, I know this is not the most interesting stream in the world, but it really needs to be done. All right, cool. So yeah, if you're, this is also a good time to hang out. So if you have any questions or just want to shoot the shit in the chat room, I'm here. And if you want to help me kill the bird, please do. If you have any ideas how to shut that fucker up, that would be extremely helpful. Let's see, start authenticating. What does that one do? That one just toggles the is authenticating state. Cool. So we can take this and say it flips authenticating state. Changes is authenticating to true. Okay. Bam, bam, bam. We take the state. Let's take state and action, because action makes sense, right? So state action type start authenticating. Is Kiwi stressed about the quarantine? Guys, Kiwi is loving the quarantine. He never gets his humans to be at home as much as he does lately. So he is super excited about this. Yeah, the bird is currently very annoying because he's just so happy to be alive, and they express happiness by being loud and annoying. And he's super excited that both me and my girlfriend are at home, which makes him even louder. Hi, Bert. Come. And yeah, maybe I should have locked him away while I'm streaming, but it's too late now. I'll never be able to catch him. I've tried. Hey, Miha. How's Slovenia doing? I heard you had an earthquake this morning, or was it last night? Changes is authenticating to true, so we say expect auth reducer of state and action to dot is authenticating to be true. And we also need to say that it preserves everything else. It preserves other properties. So we can say expect. I can copy this stuff, and we're just gonna, I don't know how, if anyone knows whether I'm doing this wrong, please let me know, because I'm relatively new to this kind of jest testing. So there's probably a better way to do it. Expires at, and okay, so we have that, and I can copy the same thing for stop authenticating. It changes is authenticating to false, to be false. Okay, but it can actually start from any direction, which is fine. So yarn test. Let's see how that works. To be false, received true. Nice. Because this needs to be stop authenticating. So this is still, the library is working. My tests were bad. Yay, tests pass. Very nice. So this is actually valuable work, because it will make it a lot easier to approve PRs and just generally work with other people. Status git commit -m tests for stop authenticating and start authenticating actions. Cool. Then for the logout, what does the logout do? The logout, logout is going to need to do local storage stuff as well. So it's going to nullify the state, and it needs to update local storage, which is where things are gonna get interesting. So we can copy, where do we have nullify stuff? This one. So it's going to empty the user, nullify expires at, and nullify auth result. Here. We can also take the state and the action. So the action is going to be just log out. We don't need to use anything else. So empties user, all of that is true. What else it needs to do is it removes user from local storage. And I think the more interesting tests are gonna come right after this. So the reducer is relatively boring, but then when we start doing more integration testing, it's going to be more interesting again, I think. It removes not user from local storage, but yeah, moves user, and we can actually do it with both. So I'm using JS DOM to run these tests. Moves user from local storage. So we can say auth reducer state and action. Then we can say expect local storage dot get item. I don't know if local storage actually exists, but I think it should because I'm running this with JS DOM. So if local storage exists, we get item use auth expires at to equal null, I think. And then we can take the same one and say use auth user needs to equal null. And if I yarn test, let's see if that works. So right now I'm just seeing if local storage works at all, but I need to also set local storage. So local storage set item use auth expires at and we set it to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 because it's just a string, and we're also going to set item user the same way. And now when I run yarn test, they're going to get removed. Perfect. So local storage tests are working. Nice. We're down to 3 people on the stream. Let's see. Now for the login state, we're going to use very similar approach, except we're going to copy over and basically do the opposite thing. Type login. Login state then requires stuff. So login needs auth result and the user. Auth result, which can be, well, how do I get a, it needs to be an object, so we're gonna just say access token 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for now. So we have the auth result, and we also need to have a user, which is going to have a sub of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what else does a user need? Auth0 user profile. So they need a name, nickname, picture, user ID. Awesome. So they need a lot of stuff. And all of these are required. So I'm going to copy them over. So name, Swizzets, nickname, Swizz. Picture, avatar, that user ID 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We don't need these things. Email verified, client ID can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we don't need the gender, locale, identity. What is an auth0 identity? Wowza. Auth0 identity needs to have a connection is social provider and user ID. So I guess, can it be empty? It can be empty. That's great. Created at is a new date. No. 2020. We are now at 03/21, right? Is it the 21st still? Oh, it's the 22nd already. Damn. And we can have updated at, that's the same, 03/22, and our sub ID is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What am I missing? Something is complaining. This is what's complaining. There we go. Why is this still complaining? Bam. Okay, so now we have a valid action and a valid current state. So we can go, it adds user to local storage. So we can nullify these guys. just so that no, we can remove item and remove item from local storage to make sure that they're not there if they were there before. And then we have to say get item use auth expires at. This needs to equal the state.expires at how am I saving it? Let's see. Auth user is a JSON stringify of expires at. So I'm gonna use the same thing, JSON stringify of state.expires at. No, actually, where does it come from? It comes from auth result expires in. So we're gonna have to Brandon, my screen right now is a Apple Thunderbolt, an old one from back when Apple still made monitors, or back when Apple made monitors before they stopped making monitors and then started making monitors again. But normally I use a 5K LG, but it's currently back for repairs because the input port died. I'm gonna let that one fail, and I'm gonna, let's see, the auth user is needs to equal JSON stringify of action.user. So that's setting the user, adds user to local storage, empties user, sets user. So this is gonna have to equal action.user, and sets expires at. This is gonna have to equal. This one's gonna be more complicated to test. So let's say 1, 2, 3. That test is gonna fail, and it's gonna have to set auth result, which is going to be the same as action.auth result. Let's see now what the tests say. We're now expecting a bunch of tests to fail because they are incorrectly implemented. Sweet. So we got nan, which is expected because we passed in a bad data. Cool. So we need to first check how does auth reducer actually get the expires at. It takes the auth result expires in, multiplies it by 1000, and adds the current get time. All right. So we are going to say auth result expires in is going to be, let's say, 500 seconds. So 500, and we're going to expect this to be, we're gonna leave that one. And now sets expires at is going to equal, no, but it's going to be within, how do I say to be within? Just to be within. Basically, I need to make sure that it's that the matcher to be near. Nice. To be near. No, come on. To be near. I'm sure that exists. To be within. Let's look at a list of matchers. Within truthiness, numbers, arrays, and iterables, common matchers. Truthiness, numbers, to be less than, to be greater than, to be, to equal. For floating point equality, to be close to. What? Okay. Dot to be close to, which takes an expected number and number of digits. Interesting. Let's do to be greater than. To be greater than. What does it need to be greater than? Time plus, okay, let's add here. const time, current time equals new date dot get time. We can say this is null for now, and user is also gonna be null. So current fine user is sub1234. Current time is new date get time. So we're expecting the expires at to be greater than, to be less than, to be greater than or equal to current time plus 500 times 1000, right? Because those are the seconds that we used. Let's see if that makes the test pass. So auth reducer is running. Cool. We are now down to one failed test. Awesome. Now the one failed test is going to be here, where we are doing expires at. This needs to JSON stringify current time plus 500 times 1000, right? Yes. Let's see, does that work? Current time plus 500 times 1000. It needs to be roughly similar to that. No. Okay. So what if we say JSON.parse, that local storage thing needs to be greater than or equal to the time here, and this is complaining that is not signable. So let's say that it is definitely not null, because it shouldn't be null. Bam, and now the tests pass. Yay. Okay, so we have full tests for the auth reducer. That's awesome. Git status git commit -m tests for auth reducer. Now we have the auth reducer tests, and it's gonna get more interesting right now. Okay, I guess we can remove this part here. Now the more interesting tests are going to be, well, let's see, what else do we have? ls source. It's going to be more interesting if we go do use auth next. So use auth. This one is a way bigger function, and this function needs to do a lot more things. So use auth is the main the main hook, which means we're gonna, how should we test this? All right, so let's see, touch source tests use auth spec.ts, and we go use auth spec, and we import use auth, and what else do we have? We also have handle auth result from /use auth, and we're going to describe use auth, which is going to have a bunch of interesting tests, and we're also going to describe handle auth result, which is going to do other stuff. Now let's see, we can start with handle auth result because it is smaller and thus will be simpler to test. So, wow, how did I do that? All right, so handle auth result, what is this? Jesus fuck bird. It needs to start with, stopping authentication. So to change the state to stop authenticating. And then it checks if everything is provided in the auth result. Otherwise, it dispatches an error. And if that's still not true, it just says false. All right. So we can start with that. describe success and describe. So we describe the success, we describe error. The question is whether should we also throw an error if the auth result just doesn't come back, because that's also a type of error, right? I think, yeah, that is actually an error. Describe error, describe basically empty data, bad data. Okay, so success is going to be, no, let's start with bad data. It returns false. Oh, and we can also say it stops, it dispatches stop authenticating. We can start with that. So it dispatches stop authenticating. We can say expect what? Dispatch. Hey, sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that. Chinemaram. So we're going to create a dispatch function to pass in. So say const dispatch is method that gets action and does null action any. Yeah. So we say expect dispatch to be called with and now we say ensure that the mock function is called with specific arguments. Optionally you can provide, so we want this to be called with type stop authenticating. Okay, and now if we call handle auth result, it should call that function, but it's complaining that we didn't provide. Let's do an await here and say that this is an async function. Like that. What else do we need to provide? What is TypeScript complaining about? It's not assignable to parameter type of blah. So our parameter type is the handle auth result interface, which expects dispatch, and it expects auth0 and auth result. Okay. Use auth. Hey. So this expects to get the dispatch function at least. And what else does it expect? Expects the dispatch function auth0, which needs to be auth0, which is no. God damn it! Why is this? So TypeScript is actually making this surprisingly difficult to mock and to test, because I don't know. Maybe maybe it's my code that's making this difficult to test. So web auth. How do I get a new web auth client? Let's see, where does auth0 come from? Use auth0 is just so we get auth0 from the context, auth context, and auth0 creates the context, and auth context gets new auth0 with web auth. Okay. Jesus, bird. Oh. So we import. Let's import auth0 from auth0.js. From auth0.js. And then we need to use it here. So we say const auth0 equals new auth0. Maybe that'll work. No. Needs to have a bunch of arguments. This expression is not constructible. Why not? Auth0. How do we do this? Oh, new auth0 web auth. All right. New auth0 web auth. That make it work? No. Now it's gonna complain that it's not a function. Oh, come on. New auth0. Okay. Like this. Not new, just new auth0. Then we need to pass in a bunch of params. Domain, localhost, client ID 12345. This is actually getting really complicated. Localhost. I don't know if this is actually gonna let me mock the auth0 client. This feels like it could be pushing things a little far. Now, what else does the handle auth result require? Use auth provider types. Handle auth result interface also requires the auth result with it, which is a decoded cache. Decoded hash. So auth result, which is just an empty object. Yay, that works. So now we can see yarn test, we can run it on just use auth. Let's see if that works. Nope, it still runs all the tests. That's annoying. Okay, to be called with received has value, function dispatch, received has type. Received value must be a mock or spite function. So how do I create a mock spy function then? Mock functions. Awesome. Using a mock function, let's imagine we're testing a blah. Mock callback, mock calls. So it needs to be a jest fun. So this is a jest fn. It looks like that. So will that work? No. Dispatches stop authenticating, expected, type stop authenticating, number of calls 0. So that did not actually get called. Nice. I still don't know how to run just a specific test. Would that make it work? Okay, that makes it work. So now I'm just running this test, or at least just this file, and it's saying that handle auth result is not calling my dispatch function. What if I do it this way? Maybe I need to run it first and then call, and then do an expect. Okay, so that works. This is different than what I'm used to in Rails. In Rails, you say you're expecting something to be called first, and then you get other stuff later. Or like, you set up your spies first and then you call them. Here you're calling them first and then checking how often the spies were called. Cool. Now we need to check for bad data. I'm going to take this. Yeah, we can keep the dispatch. Or actually, yeah, let's make this mock here. So const dispatch. Now, when we have bad data, we're expecting, let's see, expect, this is async, expect await handle auth result with dispatch auth0 and auth result that is empty to to be false, right? Let's see, will that pass? I think that should pass, because that's the last step in the returning a promise from describe is not supported, right? Describe bad data, it returns false. Man, writing tests, I really should have been doing this while I was writing the actual library, because adding them later is annoying. Okay, we've got that part. Now the error, it still needs to return false, but it also needs to do what? It also needs to dispatch the error stuff. Okay, returns false. It dispatches error. So we say async blah, and we're going to await handle auth result with the same thing, and we're going to expect dispatch to be called with type error, and it needs to get an error and an auth result. Error type auth result, and an error that is the same as our error. We're going to create an error here. Wow. Const error equals new error, and we're going to pass that into the function, run the tests, see if they pass. Nope. What? Console error, source use auth 60, use auth. Oh, right. So it passes, it's just that this thing also console logs the error, which is what we got here. Cool. So that's working. Now we need to write the success, which is going to be a little bit more interesting. So it's going to return true. It returns true. Wait handle auth result with blah to be true, and here we're going to create const auth result, which is going to be an object, and this object is going to, we're expecting the access token and the ID token. Access token is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and ID token is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because those are easy numbers to test with. We pass in the auth result, we expect that to be true, and it also needs to run the set session. Oh. And when it runs the set session, we're going to actually, because we're not exporting this one, this is like an internal function, right? Where else do we call this? We just call it once. Yes, so we just call it once, which means it's an internal function to handle auth result. So we are going to, where are we gonna, we're gonna test this with the handle auth result. So we're gonna be expecting it to, so it's gonna return true, and we're going to say it dispatches login, which is an async method, and this async test is going to say await handle auth result with dispatch auth 0 and auth result, and then we're expecting dispatch to be called with, what are we expecting it to be called with? We're expecting to get the login, the auth result, and the user. So type login, the user, which is going to be, where does the user come from? So we're gonna expect auth result, and we're also gonna expect the user, which it gets from the auth 0 client. So that's gonna be difficult. Let's see what happens. user that does stuff. Oh, we can mock the auth0 client thing. Let's see what happens first. Yarn test, use auth spec ts. Bam, 1 failed, 2 failed. So we got success, return true, request has been terminated, possible causes, the network is offline or the origin is not allowed. Cool. That means we do actually have to mock our auth0 client thing. That's annoying. How do we mock this call? Auth0 client user info. Oh, we can actually, I think we can just override it. Let's try that. Let's see, auth0.client equals jest.fna that auth0 client dot user info equals a jest fna that does what? User info gets the access token and a callback. So we say it's a function that gets access token and a callback and runs the callback, right? Yeah, so gets the access token and runs it with error or user. So callback null and user like that. Let's see if that's gonna work. No. Auth0 user profile, which we have here. Auth reducer spec. So we can say the user. Bam. Okay, so these mocks are kind of getting out of hand, but I think this is how you're supposed to do it, right? Let's try. First, we're gonna see that it doesn't fail the tests. Hey, today, how are you doing today? How's the situation in Slovenia? Number of calls 3. Damn. Okay. Sweet. Okay, we're making progress. I don't know why the dispatch function is failing us. Where are we? Handle auth result. It dispatches. Okay, I'm gonna check how do you tear down jest function mocks or spies, because I think they're interacting with each other. Let's try xdescribe here. See if that makes it pass. Nope. It did call dispatch way too many times. So let's see. We come here, it describes success, it returns true, that worked, and it dispatches login, but not with this user. It needs to pass it with this user. So let's say user here, and const user equals all of that stuff. And we can say user here. Maybe now it will pass. We'll try that. Dispatch as login. Did it dispatch login? Okay, so that made it work. So, alright. So we describe success. We dispatched login when we return true. Now we need to check the not auth provider, but set session also has another path here for dispatching with an error. So if user info doesn't come back, we need to perm, let's see, describe success, describe no user info returned from auth0.client. So when that happens, we expect to get false, right? Yeah, so we're expecting it to return false. We need to have a good auth result, and we're also then expecting to dispatch an error. It dispatches error, and this error is going to be, so we're expecting the user info error. Type error type is user info, and we're also expecting the error to be error. Yeah, let's just have it as error, and that means we need to change how we mock the function here. So we're expecting this with error and no user, and the error is just a new error, right? Callback error. It needs to be an auth0 error. What is an auth0 error then? Use auth0 error looks like this. Use auth spec. So the error looks like, so it's an auth0 error, which equals error no info. No? Cannot find name auth error, whatever. It's not assignable. What about no? No? So this callback can actually, I'm pretty sure it can actually return not a user profile, because if there's an error, why would it also be returning a profile, right? Today, yes, I'm using Jest only for tests. Is it useful for anything other than tests? And as far as it being quiet, it's pretty quiet here as well. I've been home for a week now. I at least go out running, because I think that's allowed. At the very least, when I go out running, I don't come into contact with anyone or anything like that, so it should be fine. Yeah. Now let's see. We should allow null here, because I'm pretty sure this can be null, but then it all goes to shit. So I'm gonna let's just keep returning the user, return the error. Let's call it error. We return the error here. So we're mocking the function. Let's see what happens. Melveta, what I'm coding is basically test coverage for the useAuth function, or the useAuth library that I have. So I'm adding test support to this so that I can merge some of the pull requests and work on the issues that have been submitted and stuff like that. That's the goal of this session today. And it's actually it's been a pretty good, what was I gonna say? It's been a pretty good way to just learn more about JavaScript testing and to practice it and to try out Jest and such. What are you up to, Melveta? So no user info returned from auth0 client returns false. It doesn't actually return false. Interesting. So see, we've already found bugs just because we are writing tests. Now, if this rejects, let's see, await set session, we shouldn't actually... Yeah, we should probably return false if we can't set the session, right? Because we're handling the auth result, we're getting user info from the auth0 client, and if that doesn't work, that means handling the auth result failed. So we can fix that, which means we found one bug already. Or did we find two? We found one bug and one potentially weird UX. Cool. So try catch E, and if there's an error, we return false. Now let's see if that makes the tests pass. Nope, that does not make the tests pass. We still have two failing tests. Sweet. So now we have tests that are making other tests fail. Oh, nice. How come you've been on hiatus from coding, Melveta? So let's see, what is now wrong? Success returns true. Why is success not returning true? Okay, so no user info returned from auth0 client. That should be fine now. Now we have problems here. Right, yeah. Let's see, is it spies leaking around? If the spies are leaking, that's an easy fix. We try that by disabling the other tests temporarily. Nope, that's not it. Okay, so what's the problem here? We are... What's the problem? Why is it complaining? So it's getting the error that there's no info here where it should be successful. Okay, let's add back the access just so that this is easier to debug. We're X describing everything, and I'm gonna add, oh, I can't actually console log stuff, can I? So let's see, it returns true. This is going to fail because handle auth result is not actually succeeding because of something that we did. So what did we do? This is catching the error. So why is it getting an error when the callback is returning null? Let's see, console.error. Error. Let's see if that works. I think, yep. So it's returning the, it's coming here. What's it getting for the error and the user? Landed a job in tech that doesn't deal with coding, but I miss it, and that's what I want to do for a career. So finally, get me into it. Oh, cool. Well, it's very exciting that you're coming back, Melveta. I personally have been trying very hard to avoid tech jobs that don't involve coding, because, like you said, coding is fun, and I know I personally enjoy it. So we are seeing a leak from here. This is still returning the error, which means I'm gonna put this back here, and let's see if that makes it work. So we're basically making sure that we are overwriting. Nope. What? Why is this not working? Basically this jest function here is overriding my mock here, which means I need to use a before each. So let's do a before each here. Up here we're gonna say before each we're going to override the so mock zero client user info for success, and then down here we're going to override it for each. We're gonna say mock of zero client user info for failure, and I think that's gonna make the tests work. Will it? Nope. Oh, actually it did. Cool. So that did make it work, which means we can now take out all of the excess. And if anyone knows a better way to run a specific test within Jest, I would be really happy, because adding all those X's and removing them later feels kind of silly. Awesome. And we can remove this console error here. Where is it? Console error. Bam. So now if we run the test, they pass, and I can commit that we have tests for the set session function, or the handle auth result function. Git commit -a-m. The second is under an xdescribe, is it? Xdescribe, no, I think it's not anymore. I removed it already. Wow, these files are getting very long, very fast. Git commit -a-m, we said was. The second, what do you mean? The res. So git commit, what am I committing? Tests for handle auth result method. And now we got status git add dot git commit -a-amend. Bam. So we fixed that. And now the next step is writing tests for the actual use auth function. Which, how would I even do that? It's gonna be interesting. How do I write tests for the hook itself? What does the hook itself even do? It's returning a bunch of stuff, and that stuff needs to work correctly. Wow, I'm getting kind of hungry here. So I'm gonna go for another up to 30 minutes, and if we don't get it done by then so be it. I'm still gonna release what I have. But this is where it's gonna get interesting. How do you test a use auth function? Especially since it's using context, which means I need to somehow mock context for use auth. Does anyone know how to mock a React context when you're testing hooks? Because I think that's what I'm gonna need here. That's very interesting. How the heck do you mock? How the heck do you fake context for a hook? Okay, let's start with coming down here. Describe handle auth result. Describe use auth, which will do a bunch of stuff. So we can. What can we do? We can have tests for specific functions that it's returning. So for login, logout, handle authentication, and is authenticated. We can test all of those, but we are gonna have to find a way to mock stuff. Describe login. Describe what else? So we're describing login, logout. We're also describing handle authentication, and we're describing is authenticated. is authenticated. So login should be the easiest to test. So const login equals use auth. And what do we say? Login needs to just run. Oh, but it needs to get auth0 from context and log out as well. So does is authenticated. So what we do really need is to figure out how to mock tests, how to mock React context when testing hooks. Spilled a bunch of water. That's fine. All right. I hope my desk is waterproof. How to mount shallow provides second argument options which may be used for passing context. I don't know if it does. I wonder if. Okay, so what's enzyme? I'm not using enzyme. Let's see, Stack Overflow. React context for saving my data and accessing the data inside a constructor. This is from 2019. And its doc page is rather poor. To test component that relies on context, you have to pass that context. Yeah, but this is not quite the same. I'm using hooks. Just test React context hooks. Yeah, how to test React component that is dependent on use context hook. And we also have testing React hooks. Just right. In general, using hooks shouldn't change testing strategy much. The bigger issue here actually isn't the hook, but the use of context, which complicates things. There's a number of ways to make this work, but the only approach I found that works with React test renderer shallow is to inject a mock hook. Oh. Interesting. So what we can do, we can mock the use context function. Interesting. Let's try that. So we can say before each, so let real use context is going to be blah. Then we say real use context equals react.use context. But it's saying that React doesn't exist. Import React from React. See if that's gonna make it work. React use context mock equals okay, so I now need to change my battery so that my face starts moving again. Burn face. Come on, face, move. There we go. Does OBS support this? Nope, OBS died, or Camera Live died. Camera Live, let's see, live. All right. And I wonder if my snap camera stuff works with this. Let's try that. No, god damn it. Now I forgot the name of that camera app. Okay, I can deal with that later. So the use context mock. Use context mock. We say that this is a jest fna that does what? It doesn't accept any arguments, does it? Nope. It's just use context and it gets the auth context, which comes from the auth provider. Actually, we can make it a function that gets something, and it's going to return an object, and that object is going to have the stuff that we expect here. So let's say state and dispatch, which is a just fna, and it's gonna have auth0, which is going to be auth0. You can take that here. So auth0, what else does it need to return? It also needs to return the callback domain, which is localhost, and a navigate, which is a just fna. Okay, so this should in theory mock our context. What is it complaining about? So that just function, then we close that stuff, and after each we unmock basically. So we say react.useContext equals real use context. And bam. Oh, man. No, what's it complaining about? React boost context is not blah blah blah. Oh, I can just do it this way. Okay. So before each, after each, we do that stuff, and now use context mock is declared, but its value is never read, but its value is actually set here. So now I should be able to test if this actually works. How do I test if this works? We can say const login equals use auth, and then write a test for login. How do we write a test for login? We basically need to make sure that the method gets called. So it calls auth0.authorize. Let's see if that's working. So login, expect auth0.authorize to be called. Right? That should work. And auth0.authorize, we need to auth0.authorize equals a jest function that does stuff, or that does nothing really. And now we run this yarn test, and let's see if it works. We're basically telling use context that it should return this stuff instead of whatever it's returning by default, and it isn't working because hooks can only be called inside of the body of a function component. This could happen for one of the following reasons. And it got called where? Use context. Cool. So it's complaining, even though we are calling use context inside the body of a function. Oh, inside of the body of a function component. How do I do this then? Do I need to actually render the component? That would be kind of silly, but let's try. Because, yeah, that would be pretty silly. Enzyme, blah. Let's try using React Test Shallow Renderer. Let's see. Yarn add ---- dev React Test Renderer. we're installing React Test Renderer. Okay, and then we import the shallow renderer. Import shallow renderer from React Test Renderer / shallow. React Test Renderer shallow. Shallow renderer is declared, but it's never called. It will be now. And that's gonna be annoying. So we say const element equals new shallow renderer dot render, and now it needs to render a component that's actually doing stuff for us, right? And this component needs to return what does it need to return? Let's just say blah, just so that React is going to be happy. No, oh, we can return no, because we don't actually have to render anything. So then we expect authorize to be called because we called login here, right? Yeah, let's try that. No, fuck, I ran the wrong command. Yarn add again, yarn test, use auth spec ts, React Test Renderer shallow. Try adding test. Yarn add types / React Test Renderer. Come on, test renderer. Try that. And I'm really hoping that there's an easier way to test this, because this is quite silly. I'm gonna have to ask, I think Kent dots will be the best approach. No? This expression is not constructible. What? What? Shallow renderer, what are you? Export function create renderer. Okay, what if I just do it this way? No, it's not callable. Does that work? Why me? Why does this shit never work? Okay, let's go with GitHub React Test Renderer, and we can find what's going on there. Jamie builds React deprecated, a lightweight solution. Of course it's deprecated. You're probably looking for a package of the same name in the React repo. Cool. React Test Renderer. React Test Renderer, create. How do I get the shallow renderer then? Source. Huh? Okay. So what if we just say React renderer from React Test Renderer, like that, and then we say React renderer dot create. Does that work? Nope. Argument of type is not assignable to parameter of type React element. Yay! What if we return hello? The string is not assignable to parameter of type React element. Any string props React element component no. What? Why does it not accept functions? God damn it. Why is this so hard? Okay, does anyone have any ideas what I'm doing wrong here? Because this is quite frustrating. Maybe I need to change this to a TSX so I can return div and div like that. And I'm going to, how do I rename a file? Move source tests, use auth spec ts to source tests, use auth spec.tsx. TSX, use auth TSX. Okay, so now it's letting me use React, but it's still complaining that I'm passing in argument of type function that returns a JSX element is not assignable to parameter of type React element any. What? React renderer create. Next element needs to get a React element. Okay. Mock. What if I do it that way? So const mock equals that function, and now it can return null. That is ridiculous. But oh fuck. So now I can run tests. Will that work? Well, it ran the tests, but the test didn't pass. Cannot read property current of undefined. What? So what is it complaining about? Oh, wait, that means I don't have to Okay, maybe I can now wrap them in auth provider, and that's gonna help it work. Or basically I can just wrap them in the auth context provider. What? Let's see, instead of mocking the context like this, let's say const context equals this object, and we can take this stuff away, and now we can wrap this in the actual context, auth context provider, value equals context, and we mock our function there. Now auth context provider will have to do what? Oh, we need to actually import the auth context provider, which comes from auth context provider. Where is it? Auth context comes from auth provider. Import auth context from /auth provider, and it says value auth context state is not the right value. God damn it. Because why? Let's see, auth context state, what are we expecting? Auth context state, it requires state to be an auth state. Guys, this is becoming way too difficult. I think that means the code is trying to tell me stuff. So let's see. This is not a correct auth state, right? Auth context state. Come on, auth context state needs to get a state that is of type auth state, which means, let's see, use auth spec ts. Where do we have a state that works? We had that in the auth reducer tests. So we can say const state is auth state, like that. Okay, now it's not complaining anymore. Now let's try if the tests are going to pass. So is the login function going to get called correctly? No, it's still not working. It's saying it cannot read property current of undefined. What the heck does that mean? Cannot read property current of undefined. Where is it trying to call that? React renderer, create. No. Create next element current. Yeah, let's try. Okay, let's try it. Let's try it with a very simple thing just to see if it's React renderer that's failing or if it's my code that's failing. Hello. So the test should still fail, but it should fail in a different way. And it fails in the same way. Cool. Cannot read property current of undefined. React test renderer cannot read property current of undefined. Bam. What is the current behavior? Only after posting this, I realized that React version should probably match. Okay, so I might be using something wrong. Nope. Package JSON. React test renderer. So I have a 16.13 React test renderer, but the React I'm using is 16.8. Let's try updating that. Yarn upgrade React. Maybe that's how that works. Yarn upgrade React. Will it work? I've never actually tried that before. I guess it did. Did it also update here? No. 6.13.1. React test renderer. Types React. Yarn upgrade. Upgrade at types / React. Let's see. Wow. Cool. So that worked. 16.13.1 yarn test. Yarn test, please now pass. Or, well, it's not gonna pass, but it should fail in a different way. Yes, it failed in the correct way. Wonderful. Now we can go back to this approach. Auth context, auth blah. Let's see. Yarn use auth spec. Please work. Nice. It worked. This feels like a weird way to test this stuff. What? Can we go back to just calling the function directly here? No, that doesn't like that. And I guess we can at least, cool. All right. So now it's actually calling authorize. Nice. Don't need the element. So now I feel like I'm doing something wrong here, but I don't know what. So I'm gonna ask people on Twitter, and I'm gonna stop streaming now and go ask them, so that, yeah. Okay, let me get a screenshot of this stuff. Let's see, carbon now sh. So I'm gonna go ask people about this before I continue, but we've made good progress today. We have tests for a lot of important things in the useauth library. I'm probably gonna finish it up, wrap it up. Well, I might wrap it up tonight, maybe not. And that's it for the stream today. So thanks everyone for watching, and I will see you again next time.